Hey, guess what's happening on this week's episode of the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with your friend and host, Oscar Camejo.
Okay, so you had a rough day at work. Maybe something went sideways at work. Maybe you had an unexpected family situation that just popped up out of nowhere. You're probably dealing with some relationship issues that have been going on for a while. Maybe you're just tired of everything just seeming like it's just going wrong. And the first thing you did when you got home today was you went straight for the kitchen. You probably weren't really that hungry. You wanted to snack on something, but your stomach wasn't even growling. But you ate an entire bag of chips anyway, or something sweet like cookies or whatever you had in the cupboard or in the kitchen, right? And after you ate it, like most of us, you probably felt worse. Then you felt bad about feeling bad. And then that cycle just started all over again. You know, we've all been there before. That's one of those things when, we just feel stressed out and we just want something to eat. That's why today's episode is called Why You Can't Stop Eating When Life Gets Hard. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand exactly why that happens. You're not alone. Here's what I want you to know before we go any further. You are not weak. You're not lacking discipline. Your brain is literally wired to crave sugar or something that you really like when you're under a lot of pressure. That's not an excuse, folks. That's simply biology. So stick around to hear the rest of today's episode. My friend, you don't want to miss it. Let's go. Be sure to visit the website at www.beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com for access to free resources and other information that will help you along your journey. If you would like to submit a question or a comment about the show or to learn more about the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle, you can always email me at hello@beatingdiabetieslifestyle.com. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Hey folks, welcome back to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with me, your host, Oscar Camejo, helping diabetics make lifestyle changes to reverse type 2 diabetes. Man, I've been doing this for about 4 years now or so. This podcast thing is really taking off, and it's all because of you all. I just thank you so much for those of you all who are tuning in from all around the world. You're sending me emails, you're leaving comments. I appreciate you. Now, if this is your first time here, hey, welcome. And if you've been rocking with me for a while, as always, I'm glad you're back. I really appreciate you. Now, before we get into today's episode, everybody, please drop a like, hit subscribe if you're not already subscribing, and share this with someone who definitely needs to hear all about the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle. So if you've been tuning in for a while now, you know that we're in a series called the Lifestyle Behavior Series. In our last episode, we talked all about chronic stress, and we're picking back up on that, and how stress actually directly raises your blood sugar. Today, we're taking it one step further because most people don't even experience stress just by itself and just move on. They actually respond to it. And one of the most common responses is eating. Yes, a lot of people are responding to stress by just eating and overeating. And we're going to answer why. That's why today's episode is all about identifying what's really going on. But for now, let's stay here and stay locked in. All right, folks, let's take a moment here. I want to speak from the heart for a minute. I've been right where you are. I have the lived experiences just like many of you have. I know what it's like to go through a hard day and end up standing in the kitchen like 10 o'clock at night, eating something you have no business eating. For me, it was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches late at night, just kind of going through a lot of stress and drinking a lot of soda or juice, whatever. Not because I was hungry, but because, the day was just so heavy. It was just a lot going on. From 10 o'clock, eating late at night to 2 a.m., going to bed late and working on a whole bunch of projects and whatnot. Folks, there was nobody at the time that was telling me, hey, Oscar, you are running yourself into the ground. Folks, that wasn't a willpower issue for me. It wasn't a failure. That's exactly why I'm telling you, when it was hard for me to stop eating, there was something going on that I really couldn't control. But maybe you may be dealing with the same situation. Maybe you're crushing it at work. You have a lot of projects going on. You're taking care of everybody else. You're handling everything. But when the day is done and the house gets quiet, it's late at night, that's when the overeating starts. That's when the late night eating starts. I get it. That is real, folks. And you're not alone. We've all been there before. But here's the thing. We have to shift our mindset and really understand exactly what's going on. Okay, now here's the big idea that I want you to grasp for today. You know, the reason why you can't stop eating when life gets hard, when things get tough, has nothing to do with you being weak. It has nothing to do with weakness at all. To be honest, what I've learned is that it's a predictable biological response to stress. I'm learning a lot about the brain and our neuroscience, a whole bunch of things. Now, here's the thing. Your brain has a reward center. Think of it like a thermostat set to comfort. When the temperature of your day gets way too high, when things get way too hard, too stressful, too overwhelming, that thermostat, it kicks on. That comfort kicks on. And it tells you to go ahead and eat something sweet to bring the stress down. It's automatic. It's a circuit, folks. It's not a lack of discipline. It's biological. Now, most people don't even think of themselves as emotional eaters because it doesn't feel emotional at all. You know what I'm saying? It just feels automatic. When you finish a hard meeting or you have an argument with somebody, you know, your body just wants to eat something because you want to be comforted. Again, you come home from a long day of work and the next thing you find yourself in the kitchen, like I mentioned. You didn't even decide to go there. It's just that circuit running on autopilot. And for those of you all who are dealing with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, that circuit has a serious consequence to your blood sugar. So check this out. I have some stats that I want to share with you. Among overweight adults with type 2 diabetes, roughly 3 out of 4 report eating in response to stress often or very often. That's not a small group, folks. That's most of us. That's 3 out of 4 people. So 3 out of 4 are reporting that they eat in response to stress. That's big. Now, if that's you, you're in very good company. You're not alone. Now, here's where it gets very important. When you eat in response to stress, it's not just a one problem thing. There's 2 problems that are happening. Punch 1, if you will, is that cortisol hit. When you're under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, your body releases a hormone called cortisol. Think of cortisol as your body's alarm system. It's built for that fight or flight. You know what I'm saying? Being chased by a bear, you want to protect yourself, so forth. And check this out. One of the things that cortisol does is tell your liver to dump a bunch of sugar into your bloodstream, glucose, right away. Do it right now. Your body is preparing for danger. It needs energy. It needs fuel. But now here's the problem. You're not running from anything, right? You're just dealing with stress. You're just having a hard day. You're dealing with relationship issues. You're dealing with some other things that are going on. So that blood sugar, that glucose spikes happen. That's when that spike happens, before you even take a single bite, your body's already trying to react. The stress itself raises your numbers. Now here comes that second punch. It's called the dopamine trap. You're stressed, your blood sugar is already elevated, and your brain is now looking for relief. So it sends a signal, eat something sweet. Okay, so what happens when you do get that relief by eating something sweet? Your brain's reward center fires off that dopamine. And that's that feel-good chemical. Yeah, it feels like relief, but here's the situation. I'm going to read some stats for you for a second. Check this out. Research shows that high sugar foods activate the same brain reward pathways as drugs of abuse, including cocaine and alcohol. And over time, your brain actually reduces the number of dopamine receptors it has, meaning you need more sugar to get the same feeling of relief. Okay, so what does all that mean? More sugar every time to get the same result. That's not willpower. That's not a willpower problem at all. That's how tolerance works, and it gets even worse. Let me read some more stats to you. Studies show that people with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes show greater brain activity in regions linked to negative emotion. Their brains are already reactive to emotional triggers, making them more vulnerable to these cravings than the average person. Now, what does all this mean? So basically, not only is a craving cycle real, for those people dealing with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, it hits even harder. So I want you to let that sink in for a moment. You have a hard day, cortisol spikes, blood sugar goes up before you even eat anything. Cravings kick in. You eat something sweet or something that's high carb, your blood sugar spikes yet again. Then comes the guilt. Then you have the feelings like you failed. And guess what? More and more guilt. And then that stress compounds because now you're stressed out because you overeat. Now you stress out because you know in your mind that you failed, right? You feel like you failed. And it just starts over and over and over again. That's why, folks, we have to stop beating ourselves up. You beat yourself up more often than you need to. You don't need to beat yourself up at all. That's no bueno, folks. And the reason so many people stay stuck is because they think the problem is just about food. But food is just a symptom. Overeating is just a symptom. The stress is the trigger, and the guilt is the fuel that keeps it going. Okay, but here's the good news. And I want you to hear this clearly. The cycle, it can't be interrupted. Your brain is not permanently wired this way. It is changeable. I'm telling you, if I was able to do it, I know you can too. And you don't need to be perfect to break this pattern. You just need to realize what's going on. You just need to be aware there are better choices for you to make. Now, let me share some research with you. Research on mindful eating adapted for people with type 2 diabetes showed a reduction in A1C of 0.83% in just 3 months, comparable to what you'd expect from adjusting medication. So that's 0.83% in 3 months. So let me say that again, nearly a full point off of your A1C numbers, just from learning to eat intentionally and being more mindful, not perfectly, just more intentionally. Okay, folks, I don't mean to sound so robotic and clinical. I just want you to understand that when you start managing how your mind responds to stress, it's a legitimate way to control type 2 diabetes. That's not soft advice, folks. That actually is documented research. And I have a couple of books that I want to share with you that help me to understand what mindful eating is. So I'm going to share those books with you because I think it's always important for us to get some research tools, get some practical information that can help change our lives, right? So why not? So one of the two books, I have a bunch of books that I can share with you, but two of these books are How to Be a Conscious Eater by Sophie Egan. I believe I pronounced that correctly, Egan. And the subtitle is Making Food Choices That Are Good for You, Others, and the Planet. When I tell you this book kind of opened my eyes to what mindful eating is, I think this is one of the very first books I got that helped me to understand about eating consciously or being more conscious of what we're putting on our plate. And even when we go to a restaurant, it actually will help you to make better choices. So this is definitely a good resource. It says it's a radically practical guide. And when I say that it's practical, it's very practical. I can literally open this book to any page and you'll get some practical information. Like here, talking about eggs and cholesterol. You know, you don't need to worry about dietary cholesterol anymore. What? You know, a lot of people are talking about cholesterol and man, you shouldn't eat eggs and so forth because they're high in cholesterol. But man, you know, this book actually helped change my mind even about cholesterol. It helped me to understand about blood pressure, all by becoming a conscious eater. So we become conscious eaters by becoming conscious readers. So another book, this one is by William Lee. His material, he has two books. So the other book is Eat to Beat Your Diet. This one is Eat to Beat Disease. the new science of how your body can heal itself. I mean, this book is very, very, is life changing. He even includes some recipes in here. So I definitely recommend that you tap into those two books. They're game changers, like I said. So, folks, I could give you a lot of information. There's so much to take in. But today we're talking about emotional eating. We're talking about how to prepare yourself when you get stressed out. So I want to give you a battle plan. Think of it as a 5-step way to interrupt that stress eating cycle. You know, sometimes it's hard for us to really identify what's going on. That's why step number 1 is important. Name the trigger. The next time you reach for food outside of your regular meal, I want you to stop and ask yourself one question. Am I hungry or am I hurting? Am I stressed out? That's it. Just one question. You don't have to have the perfect answer. You just need to pause long enough to ask yourself that question. You know, that pause alone is what will help to change that circuit. It changes that immediate response. Because sometimes when we get stressed out, we just quickly want to get something to eat, right? Okay, so that's why step number 2 is very important. Buy yourself 10 minutes. So when a craving hits, don't try to white knuckle through it. Give that cortisol spike time to pass. Like slow down for a second. Take 10 minutes, walk around the block or whatnot, drink a full glass of water, step outside if you need to, pray if you need to. 10 minutes. That's all you need to let that hormonal wave settle down before you decide on what to eat. Now, I know some people may be like, well, Oscar, that sounds kind of weird. Like, take 10 minutes. Is that really going to do something? So, folks, you know, I like to tell you all things that are very practical. You know, just today, I was kind of under some pressure with getting a lot of things done before the start of my week and just thinking through some things. So I just immediately just was getting frustrated because I felt like I was behind schedule on getting some things done. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to take a drive. And I am hungry, or I feel like I'm hungry. And just this thought of, hey, why don't you just go get a burger and some fries or something? So yes, I can have a burger and fries. I can be flexible. I don't have to have a highly restrictive diet. But I knew that, you know what, I'm working on something, and I knew better than to just go and deep dive into grabbing some junk food or whatnot, especially when I was frustrated. So I took some time just to get in my car and drive further than I would normally go. And when I tell you that craving for a burger and fries went away, it actually did. You know, because let's be honest, when we're stressed out, nobody's thinking about getting a salad, eating some broccoli, sauteing some vegetables. Nah, we want to get something that's going to help comfort us, right? We all have been there, done that. So when I tell you that did me good. So along the drive, I say, you know what? I'm going to eat something healthy. And I actually made a good decision. I went to my favorite Mediterranean place where I go and pick up a nice bowl of a whole bunch of vegetables, you know, and had some protein in there. And I felt better about myself for having slowed down and made the right decision, because I didn't need a burger, folks. I didn't need fries. I didn't even need cookies. Yeah, I love chocolate chip cookies, but, you know, I didn't need it. Now let's move on to step number 3. Use friction, not willpower. You don't have to be strong. You just have to make the bad choice inconvenient. If the chips are on the counter, you'll eat the chips. If they're not in the house, you won't eat the chips. So don't put the stuff in your house. That's not discipline. That's basically a strategy. You know, strategy beats willpower every single time. Folks, it's important to clean house sometimes. So if you know you're struggling with certain cravings, get that stuff out of your house. So step number 4, find your substitute. You need one non-food thing that takes the edge off. Just one thing. Again, like I mentioned before, it could be a short walk. It could be a phone call to someone that keeps it real with you, a friend. You know, journaling is very important. Prayer is important. And you know what? How about music? Music plays a big role as well. Whatever it is, just name it so it's ready when that craving hits. You can't fight a habit with nothing. You have to replace it with something. So step number 5, don't do this alone. Research is clear that social support and spiritual practice both together buffer the effects of chronic stress. Your faith community, your accountability partner, your support group, folks, these aren't just something nice to have. They're a part of your battle plan. You know, when stress is shared, it's smaller. When you're accountable to someone, you make better choices. You know, find your people, find your tribe, lean on them, lean on that group, lean on your faith group. So community is important. Folks, let's bring it all home. Again, as I've shared before, you're not weak, you're not broken. Now you know why you can't stop eating when life gets hard. It's the way your brain is wired, literally. It's wired to respond to stress. That's not weakness. That's simply biology. You're human. And now you know what's happening. You want to break the cycle? Ask the question. You want to break the cycle? Buy yourself 10 minutes. You want to break the cycle? Make the bad choices hard to reach. It's all about awareness, folks, followed by one better choice at a time. That's all it takes to start. And all you have to do is start. Again, let me say that again. All you have to do is just start. And most people with type 2 diabetes are setting themselves up for failure night after night, day after day. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I don't take it for granted. Now let's get out there and put this all into action. And as always, stay focused, keep moving, never go back, leap forward, bounce back because you can, my friend. And above all else, trust God. You got this. I believe in you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Beating Diabetes Lifestyle Podcast with Oscar Camejo. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As a reminder, this podcast is intended for motivational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional care by a physician or other healthcare professional or qualified fitness instructor. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or professional advice or services. If you're looking for help on your journey, seek a qualified medical practitioner. It's important that you utilize someone who is a trained, licensed healthcare professional who can help you on your journey toward good health.